Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV. We are doing a bonus edition this weekend as we are not travelling to Fleetwood for the away fixture. So I am doing a question and answer session, which we have done before, and they have been received rather well. So we put out a tweet and a Facebook post the other day and asked you guys to post your questions. And we've got plenty to get through, so I'm going to start with them straight away. We will start on Twitter and then move over to the Facebook questions. And I will try to answer as many as possible in the time allotted. So, first question come from Peter Taylor on Twitter. His Twitter handle is Bury Me in Exile. Interview type question. The question almost everyone hates during job interviews is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Thinking about the Gills, where could they get in 2024 and what needs to happen to reach that goal? You're right, Peter, I do hate these questions. I think, like I'd probably say in a job interview, and I think I did say in a recent job interview, I just think as football fans of any club, we want to see progress and we want to see some sort of progression in terms of the team and where we are in the league table. And for the last 3 or 4 seasons, Gillingham have sadly just been embroiled in relegation battles, it seems, and it'd be nice if we could be sat here in a few years, and I'm not saying we're going to be in the Premier League or the Championship and we might not have even got out of League One, but it'd be nice to be maybe in the top half and challenging for the playoffs, and the home form could be better and we could be enjoying the football more regularly, because let's be quite honest, at the moment Gillingham is rather up and down. It's sometimes a case of 1 step forward and 2 steps back. So yeah, I think that's the most tactful answer I can give is progression on and off the pitch. In terms of your part about what needs to happen to reach that goal, I think our chairman Paul Scully's been quite open and he said we need investment. I did go to one of the chairman's meetings before Christmas and he said that he fears 4 teams in League One because without investment he thinks that plenty of teams and plenty of sides and plenty of clubs risk going to the wall if they do not find investment in the next few years, such as the money now in the Premier League and the Championship, which has pretty much been relabelled Premier League 2. You only have to look at the transfer fees and the wage budgets of side in that Championship division, and they're exorbitant compared to what they were a few years ago, and it doesn't seem to be filtering down into Leagues 1 and 2, unfortunately. And second question from Peter, he was greedy. He said, there are 100 days until the Women's World Cup kicks off and women's football seems to be on the rise in England as well. With that in mind, have you ever watched Gillingham ladies down at Chatham? I am sad to say, Peter, no, I haven't, unfortunately. The trouble is my Sunday side that I run plays on a Sunday as well, hence it being called a Sunday side. And Gillingham ladies tend to play on a Sunday, so it's always a fixture clash, it seems, and I can't always justify being out all day on a Sunday to go and watch football if I'm also out on the Saturday afternoon, obviously with wife and kids and family life to do. So no, it is an aim of mine to try and go and take in a women's game shortly, but I haven't been down there yet. But maybe we'll put it on the to-do list. Next up is Luke at Naylor94, and he asks, if you were Gills chairman for the week, what would you try and change or implement during your short tenure? In a week? I wouldn't go on Twitter, and I certainly wouldn't promise to go on Twitter. It's a tough one, Luke, I'm not going to lie. Without some sort of research, maybe I could come back to you, but 7 days is a very short period of time if you're trying to implement change. Maybe we could just go down the rash route and give all the money that we've got to Steve Lovell or the manager, and he can go and blow it all on a playing budget. But in terms of a sensible answer, I think that'd need a little bit more thought. Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a good one. I appreciate that one, Luke, but struggling to answer that off the cuff, so to speak. So I shall move on to the next one, and that is Liam Stanley at Liam Stanley 20. A very simple question. Do you think we'll have enough to stay up? Very simple answer. Yes, I do think we've got enough to stay up, Liam. I think the new signings that have come on board and transfer deadline day have had a positive impact on the whole. The likes of Leonardo da Silva Lopez and Graham Burke have been to the fore over the last few weeks. Tarbon Campbell come on Saturday away at Wickham and had a positive impact, it seems, from all the reports, and he was on the pitch when we nicked our late winner. We've not seen loads of Billy King. He's been in and out of the squad and the side. But the big one is obviously Ricky Holmes, hopefully available for Oxford next Saturday, which would be a huge bonus if we can get him fit for the run-in. And he could potentially be a big difference maker in terms of where we do end up come the final reckoning. But yeah, I did a league predictor thing on Twitter the other day, which I think Peter Taylor did tweet, and I had us down to finish 13th. with 56 points. So you might call me crazy, it might be glass half full, but it might be glass half full of something alcoholic, you might say. But no, I think we'd be absolutely fine. If you look at the results since the new boys came in, we've played 5 and the only 2 defeats in that time have been to 2nd and 3rd in the league. That's Barnsley and Sunderland. Aside from that, we've taken 7 points from 9. So 2 clean sheets in there as well. So I think it's been all positive since the end of the transfer window. And yes, I do think we'll stay up. Next one comes from Lewis at LRCB Tweets. Do you think that we've got a shot at keeping or will want to keep any of the current loan players next season, whether on loan again or on permanent deals? It's a good question, Lewis. Like I've just said, answering Liam's question, we've seen plenty of Graham Burke and we've seen plenty of Leo da Silva Lopez, and they both look very bright. Inconsistent is a word at this level, and that's the reason they probably dropped down into League One. But Lopez went for £1 million not so long ago, so he's clearly got potential and he's very young, so there's lots to work with. Graham Burke looks very good at times. He looks like he's got an extra couple of minutes on the ball compared to everyone else. He's got 2 good feet. He's clever with it. I think they would only improve us long term if we were able to keep them in whatever guise. In terms of the others, Ricky Holmes would be fitness dependent. If you get him fit and he's available 100% without even seeing him play for us. I've seen him play plenty of times against us and he's torn us to shreds on more than one occasion, so he'd definitely be one I'd look at keeping. Tarvon Campbell and Billy King, jury's still out, we've not seen loads of them, but maybe ask me again end of the season and we can answer that one in more detail. Ben Horn at Horn 1995, thanks for your question, mate. Actually, I do apologise, that's not a question, that is just... yes, it is, sorry, I've just found it. Given current form and player injuries, where do you think we'll end up finishing this season? I've just answered that again, Ben. I've said 13th. I said beginning of the season when I did my season preview vlog that I thought we'd finish 11th with the squad that we had. I'd have probably reassessed that about 2 months ago and said a lot lower. But doing that league predictor thing and looking at the fixtures that we have and the way we've improved since the new players have arrived, yeah, I've got us down as 13th on 56 points, which I think 56 points is the same as last season, but it would have us a couple of places higher. But yeah, it's very, very tight, the final league table that I had. I think there was only a few points separated, a good half a dozen or more teams. So it's going to be an interesting running. As we know, our home form isn't great. But potentially it could be very pivotal with games coming up against Oxford, Bristol Rovers, Shrewsbury. I think there's Rochdale as well still to come at the Priestfield. And looking at the Wycombe performance and the Scunthorpe performance especially recently, I think we'll have enough and I think we'll win enough games to be pretty comfortable, in all honesty. Who have we got next on Twitter? Geordie86 Renault. Thank you for your question, mate. If you could sign any player in the world, just one to make us better, who would it be and why? Anyone from any club, no budget, no restraints. That's a good one. I mean, you can go through the obvious ones, the Ronaldos and the Messis, but if it's any player in the world, they're all going to make us a lot better than we are because we're League One. And I suppose if you wanted an out-and-out wide player that we tend not to have until recently, and someone who's at a very good age, sell on value, if you're looking at it like that, I'd go for the lad at Dortmund, Jadon Sancho, who's been absolutely incredible this season for Borussia Dortmund. They're a side that I do follow in the Bundesliga. They're currently top. His output in terms of goals and assists has been incredible for a kid who's still a teenager. He's only going to get better and better, and he is English, so yeah, that's one for me. I'd go Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund. Who've we got next? Just scrolling. James Dobson at Gills James 1983. He has asked, are you Lovell in or Lovell out? And either way, if he does go, who would you want to replace him? It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it changes throughout the season. Obviously, when we're not winning football matches and we're going through barren runs of losing runs and whatever, it becomes harder to support the manager. But I think if you look at his record overall since he come on, I think his win percentage is about 35%. So if you take that over a season, and again with the draw percentage and the loss percentage as well, I think he'd have to finish lower mid-table, which considering where we've been over the last few seasons, I don't think that's unrealistic or a disaster by any means. So based on that, I'd probably say I'm levelling at the moment. In terms of managers that are out there, there's some available. Gary Bowyer was one that was mentioned a few weeks ago when we was discussing Steve Lovell's position. Michael Appleton has worked at this level and done well. I can't think of many off the top of my head. There's one big name, that Mark Warburton, that was a name I heard on a podcast this morning, the NTT20 podcast, which is a very good one. I will give them a quick plug. If you're not following them on Twitter, go and do it. It's an excellent podcast that they do on a Monday and a Thursday. Everything but the Premier League. So yeah, it's tricky because I am still levelling at the moment, so I'm not at the stage where I'm looking at potential replacements. And it's always harder when you're sort of asking these questions February, March time. It's always easier end of the season, pre-season, so to speak, to get replacements in. But I think he's doing an all right job at the moment. I think he's been bright in the transfer window and got the right type of players in, maybe aside from a proper holding midfielder. But I don't think we can really complain with the work we've done towards the end of the window. So at the moment, I'm still Steve Lovell. Lee Clifton asks if you could sign a defender, that's at @FOM_blog, sorry. If you could sign a defender, a midfielder and a striker who have previously played for Gillingham to play in our current squad, which 3 players would you sign and why? I'm not sure whether this is just all-time, Lee, or whether they're still currently playing, so I'm not sure what the stipulations are. So I will do it as current players in the Football League. So in terms of defender, I would say John Egan, who was absolutely first class for us as captain in his 2 seasons at the club before moving on to Brentford and now Sheffield United. Could invariably be a Premier League player by next season. Midfielder, simple enough. Bradley Dack has gone from strength to strength since leaving us and moving to Blackburn Rovers. Helped get them promoted last season into the Championship. They're sitting pretty in mid-table at the moment, and I think he's been involved in the most goals of anyone in their squad over the last 18 months or so. So he's just getting better and better, and the old saying about you get better with the better players you play with, and he's definitely doing that. And in terms of a striker, I would go for someone that is still plying his trade in our division, might not be again next season. That is John Marquis. When we signed him on loan back in 2014-15, there was talk amongst our fans of his goal record, which didn't really stand up. He'd not had success anywhere he'd been at Millwall or his loan spells. I think Northampton was one that was particularly barren, but he come in and did a job with us and was really good up front alongside Cody McDonald. Didn't sign for us permanently that summer, went to Doncaster, I believe, and then he dropped into League 2 with them. He's been absolutely phenomenal ever since. He's probably been, in terms of League 1 and League 2, he's potentially the best striker in terms of games to goal ratio over the last 2 or 3 seasons. Then there was a question of him again, can he step up and do it in League 1? He's done it for 2 seasons on the bounce. They're sitting in the playoff zone at the moment, and he's had a massive part to play in that. So that would be my 3, Lee. John Egan, Bradley Dack, John Marquis. Who have we got next? This is where it turned into a conversation. I think people didn't realise that Lee had replied to me and everyone just had a big debate about who they'd sign, which is fine. Here we go. Tomo GFC, Ben Thompson, thank you, mate. If we were to stay up this season, what would your aim be for next? Go the extra mile and aim for the playoffs. Also, what players would you keep and let go? In terms of the players, there's loads out of contract. I'll probably do a piece on that at the end of the season on my own or with Boz and Stocky. So I won't answer that right now, Ben, if you don't mind. I'll leave that for a separate vlog when the season ends in terms of contract renewals and that type of thing. Because it is going to be quite a big one. That'll take ages, considering the amount of players that we do have that are running out of deals this summer. If we were to stay up this season, I think we will, so that's fine. What would your aim be for next season? Progress. I've said that to someone else. If we finish where I've predicted, either at the beginning of the season or now, which is 11th or 13th, I'd be more than happy. If we finish 16th, 17th, 18th, I'll probably be happy, because we have been massively inconsistent this season. And then again, in terms of next season, let's build on what we've got. If we can keep the majority of the squad, or the ones that we feel are good enough to progress us next season, whatever that may be, relatively speaking, then we do all we can to keep them at the football club. And then if we can add some quality, and going back to Lewis's question, whether that's with the loan players that are here now, whether we can keep them or get them for another season or sign them on permanence, then hopefully look to pushing them consistently, be a top half side. And if we do that, then the next step would be pushing on maybe towards the top 6. But these things take time. We don't have a massive budget. We certainly don't have the smallest budget, I don't think. I think there's teams below us that have smaller budgets, the likes of Rochdale, the likes of Accrington. But looking the other way, you have to look at the likes of Portsmouth, Sunderland, Barnsley, Championship squads, let's be honest. So yeah, for me, again, like I said to someone else, I know it's a bit of a cop-out, I would say Progress, and if we can become a solid, consistent League One side that's not entrenched in relegation battles, then I'd more be happy, and then we go from there again. Next question is from Dutch Gundenson, serious as ever. Thank you, Dutch. Do you think the time is right for a critical appraisal of the actor Clive Mantle? Nope. Is that the geezer from Holby City? Because I'm not sure. If you could bring back one player from these three, which would it be? Gary Micklewhite, Paul Haig or Alan Powton? Can we not have all three? Absolutely world-class ability, all three of them. And in answer to your last question, I could not give a toss about Brexit. They're all corrupt, they're all horrible, and I'm not doing politics on this channel. Chris Willis, at WillisChris288, thanks for your question, buddy. Asks, would you actually be gutted if Eves left? Feel like we should be, but 2 goals in around 14 games is not a good return at all. Same goes for Holy, both replaceable currently, it seems. He's got 4 in his last 14, because I have just checked, Chris, because I was sure that it wasn't that bad, his current run. It's 4 in his last 14, I think, going back to the Slough game in the Cup. It's only 2 in his last 8 or 9, I believe, which is Coventry penalty and... When did he score? Sunderland defeat, sorry. But yes, I would. I'd still be gutted on the fact that he's been absolutely immense for us in the 2 seasons that he's been with us. He scored, what, 35, 36 goals in about 85 games. So he's going around 0.4, 0.45 per game. It's difficult to replace that. And it's probably more difficult to replace that when you've got the fella in on a free transfer and under the radar, so to speak. But if he wants to go and play at a higher level and he gets that move, then I'm sure 99% of Gills fans would send him on his way with their best wishes, because he's been first class for us. I've said on a couple of videos recently that some people have said he's down tools and he's not working hard. I think that's a load of nonsense. I just think he's going through one of them spells that strikers have where things aren't going for him. It's just not falling for him, or shots that were going in are just going past the post, so to speak, and stuff like that. Thomas Holy, I would be disappointed again. Not as bad as Eves probably, but I think his form is improving over the last few weeks, and we're starting to get him back to somewhere near his best. I'm not saying he's at the same levels as last season. There's factors that contribute to that, which I'm not going to go into in any detail, but the likes of maybe Glenn Johnson leaving and having to change goalkeeper coach again and playing in a team that's not been as good defensively because we've tried to play on the front foot a bit more. But yeah, I'd be gutted to see Tom Eves leave. I'd definitely be disappointed if Thomas Holy did move on, because I think they're very decent, hard-working, honest pros at League One level. But if they do, we'll have to deal with it like most teams have to do at this level and try and replace them the best we can. Excuse me. Right, let's find the next one. Lee Clifton again, at Fonblog again. Who would you nominate for Gillingham Player of the Season? I think the obvious one's probably Thomas Eves, because of the sheer amount of goals that he's got, and we're still 2.5 months away from the end of the season, so chances are he's going to pass 20. He needs, what, 3, 4, 5 in the league, something like that. Obviously got 17 in all competitions now. Trying to think of others. Elliot List has had a breakthrough season, so he's probably in contention, but has he played enough regular games? The other one I'd say would be a bloke that probably only arrived in the summer to be backup right back and has ended up being first choice right back and left back, and that is Barry Fuller, who I think has been absolutely immaculate pretty much all season long. 34 years of old age, still going strong. So yeah, that's probably my 2 contenders at the moment. I think there's a few that were very good last season that have dropped off in terms of performance levels, but there are positive signs in the last few weeks that we're getting back to seeing them somewhere where we need them to be, and fingers crossed we can have a good end to the campaign. D3, D4 football, James, that will be. Excellent website, podcast, Twitter page, go and follow it, another plug. There are lots of Gills fans that dislike your chairman Paul Scally. Are there? Where do you stand on his ownership? I stand somewhere in the middle. I'm not Scally in, I'm not Scally out. I'm not going to beat the drum about lies and non-investment for this and that, because at the end of the day, we've been a football club for 125 years and we've spent 5 years in the second tier of English football, and that was under Paul Scally's stewardship. Yes, he's done things wrong. Yes, he's got things wrong. Yes, he frustrates me at times. Has he taken the club as far as he can? Potentially. But we don't know for sure. You can only take what he says at face value to a degree, and he says that he's desperately trying to get the right type of investment in the club to move us forward to the next level. Again, whatever that is. New stadium, extra playing budget, we don't know. But I spoke to him along with Dave when we went to one of the chairman question and answer sessions prior to Christmas, and he seemed genuine enough. Obviously, he's a businessman and he's a chairman, so he's well versed on what he can and what he can't say. But I'm not one of these that every time the football club tweets something, I have to reply with Scally out, because number one, it's boring. Number two, it's repetitive. Number three, it's monotonous. Number four, plenty of these people that tweet these types of things have no idea, no master plan of what would actually happen if Paul Scally did disappear. I'm still very much in the, if it wasn't for Paul Scally, we wouldn't have a football club to moan about or a chairman to moan about camp. He's far from perfect, but find me a perfect chairman. There's not many about, and there's plenty more examples of football clubs who've been bought out and promised the earth, and they're in a lot better way than Gillingham Football Club, the likes of Coventry, which you've spoken about on your podcast recently, the likes of Oxford, your football club. If you look at Portsmouth, who have had to rebuild. If you look at Bradford, they're really struggling. They've been in the Premier League. If you look at Leyton Orient, they're not even in the Football League. So for me, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. It'd be great if you could say, yeah, Paul Scally was to leave or get investment in and we was going to get X amount and we was going to be challenging for a promotion and promised this and it was all going to come to fruition. But that's not how football works, unfortunately. So at the moment, we go along as we are. We are a lower to mid-table League One side. Nothing more, nothing less, in my opinion. So yeah, no real dramas for me at the moment. Good question though. I'm sure that'll create some debate when this gets posted on all the social media platforms. So thank you, James. Next up is Ted Kendrick at Kendrick_Ted. Do you think we will keep hold of Holy in the summer? Yes, I think we might do now. I think the dip in form that he had through the first 2/3 of the season potentially has allayed any interest from higher up the football pyramid. And I think that if we were to offer him a new contract, he might stay. But, you know, I've got no crystal ball. He might have a majestic end to the season, keep clean sheet after clean sheet, Ted, and then a big club comes in the Championship or high-end League One and he does move on. So, but at the moment, if I had to say one or the other, I say I think we've got a good chance of keeping Thomas Holy. Next is Orthodox Stan OS. Thank you, Owen. Do any of the new loan signings remind you of past players? Ricky Holmes we've not seen. Billy King I've only seen for an hour. Tarvon Campbell I don't think I've seen live yet. Graham Burke and Leo da Silva Lopez then. Ooh, it's a good question. Graham Burke's a tricky one because I think if you go back to previous players, going back through the years, like when I first started watching the Gills, which was mid-90s, late 90s, didn't really play a number 10 or a centre attacking midfielder. It was 4-4-2, so you had two centre midfielders and two strikers with wingers. Leo da Silva Lopez. There's something, the way he glides around the pitch reminds me of someone, and I can't for the life of me think who it is. He's very easy on the eye. But Lendaki was easy in the eye, but he doesn't play that position again. I'm going to have to think about that one. I think, Owen, and I'll come back to you if I can think of any, but I'm not sure, especially not in the last recent history or sort of last 20 years. I can't think of anyone that particularly stands out to give a really good comparison. But I will have a think about it, and if I can come up with something, I will tweet you. Who we got next? Have we got any more on Twitter? No, I think that is everything on Twitter, so I shall now move over to the Facebook page and start answering questions on that platform as well. Right, we've got quite a few on Facebook as well, so let's get through these before we run out of time. Thank you for everyone who's posted on there as well. Regan Archer was the first top 5 players this season. Top 5, that's generous. Tom Eaves. Barry Fuller. Oh, blimey. Elliot List. Brandon Hanlon. This is off the top of my head, so don't obliterate me on Twitter if I've forgotten someone, or on Facebook or any other social media. Who've I got? Tom Eaves, Barry Fuller, Elliot List, Brandon Hanlon. Oh, I might take Brandon Hanlon here. Definitely them three. I might stick to a top 3, Regan, and cop out. Top 3 would definitely be Tom Eaves, Barry Fuller and Elliot List in no particular order. I'm trying to think of 2 more. Connor Ogilvie, he's been much improved, so maybe he'd sneak in the top 5. Brandon Hanlon, I think, has been very good, but probably hasn't got the goals he deserved. Max Amar, again, has played pretty much every game. Generally been pretty consistent. So yeah, that's it at a push then. Eaves, Fuller, List, Amar, Ogilvie and Hanlon have been honourable mentions, we call it. So that's my 5. I think that's 6 now. Blimey. Sam Williams asks, looking at our current crop of players, if they were available on free transfers, how many do you believe would be picked up by a League One club and higher? It's tricky, isn't it, Sam? Because this obviously everything's done on form, so it's like, you know, last season we go, Thomas Holy was bound to go to the Championship, and I think it was rumoured that Arsenal, Everton and Palace were looking at him, but then he has a dip and it goes quiet, and Tom Eaves was having a purple patch earlier in the season, and every other Championship club north of Watford was looking at him, and Glasgow Rangers were looking at him apparently, and Sunderland were willing to pay money for him, and then he has a dip, Christmas, New Year, and suddenly it's gone quiet after the January transfer window, and potentially now we might keep him. So I think it's all very in the here and now, isn't it, that sort of question, but I think Elliot List, based on potential, could go higher. I think Thomas Holy potentially could if his form continues to improve, which it has done over recent weeks. Barry Fuller's been class act. I mean, Barcelona probably get him in on a free transfer, Real Madrid. All jokes aside, but he's been class, age and everything considered, and the fact that I've already mentioned, I think he was coming in as backup at the beginning of the season. Gabby Max probably not. Luke O'Neill probably not had the best season. Connor Ogilvie, still young, so, you know, if he continues improving, then maybe. Darren Oldacre, you think someone might take a punt on him based on potential. Eavesy, definitely. I've said Elliot List, I think. So there's a few, yeah, I think that people will take a punt on based on potential more than anything, I suppose. Who is next? Who we got? Let's scroll down. Alex Wood, do you think Lovell is our long-term future? I think I've answered that pretty much in a roundabout way earlier on from the Twitter questions, Alex, when someone said, do I think I'm in or out? I think at the moment, I think he's the right man for the job. I think if we have a strong end to the season, and we can maybe, you know, keep the nucleus of the squad that he wants and then add some more quality, because, like I said, he's had a very decent transfer window and he has been backed well by the chairman, then there's no reason to look to change it. Like I've just mentioned in answering another question, we are historically a League One side. We've spent most of our existence in League One and League Two, or Division 3 and Division 4 as they've been historically called. So if we can have a strong end to the season and look at pushing on next season into the top half of League One, then great. And if we do that, then Steve Lovell has to be the man to try and continue to push us forward. Andy Cansdale is next. If everyone in the current squad, including loans, were fit, who would be your starting 11? What formation? And where do you think they would finish in League One? Hypothetically speaking, of course. Thomas Holy in goal. I think I'd play the diamond, because I think that's the best suited system that we have if we can get everyone fit, like you've said. So I would go Thomas Holy in goal. Centre-back pairing would be Max Amar and Gabriel Zakwani, which is arse on Connor Ogilvie, because I think he's a better centre-half than a left-back. So then I'd have to go... Oh, it's a good one. Fantasy football, but in a rush. Barry Fuller at right-back and Bradley Garmston at left back. I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion. So yeah, so Holy, Garmston, Fuller, Amar, Zakwani. Midfield, it's tricky. We don't have a proper holding midfielder. We unfortunately have Aaron Morris Mark II in Billy Bingham, who's very good when he plays, it seems, but just doesn't play nearly enough. But if it's when everyone's fit, I'd have Bingham at the base. I'd have Leonardo da Silva Lopez from one side of the diamond, and I'd have toss up between Mark Byrne and Callum Riley from the other side. In terms of a number 10, I'd probably go with Graham Burke. And up front, I would go with Tom Eaves and Elliot List. Change my mind in 5 minutes, probably. Yeah, it's a good question. Like I say, I'll probably change my mind. Be interesting to hear yours as well, Andy, if you can reply on Facebook and let me know. Matty Millen, super fan who travels from Middlesbrough for every home game. Absolute top effort, that, mate. Well done. Who would you say is player of the season as well as young player and goal of the season at this moment in time? I think I've already answered this. I think player of the season is going to be between Tom Eaves and Barry Fuller. Young player of the season, I would say Elliot List, because he's started playing more regularly and he's scoring more regularly. With honourable mentions to Connor Ogilvie and Brandon Hanlon. And goal of the season is an absolute no-brainer. Fratton Park, October the 6th. Tom Eaves, flick over his head, left foot volley into the roof of the net. Wallop! Vinny O'Connell, how much Gills is in your blood? Were your parents, grandparents or even great-grandparents Gills supporters? No, they weren't, Vinny. My dad is a Spurs fan. My dad is a Spurs fan. I've just done that one from afar. He's not one that goes to loads of games now, but that is why I do follow Spurs' results in the Premier League. But I did sit in the away support September 2016 when they were pitched against us in the League Cup, just for anyone who wants to question the allegiance. Grandparents, my mum's dad was Polish, so didn't really like football. He followed horse racing and whiskey. And my dad's dad was a Sheffield United fan, and great-grandparents, I haven't got a clue. So long before my time. So no, it was a thing that started from friends at school, trying to find something to do, local football on a Saturday. Gills was affordable back then when you could bunk the train, and tickets were about £3 or £4. Programme was about £1.50, so fell in love with it from there, started going regular and been sucked in ever since for my sins. Second question from Vinny, and how long have you been going games Stocky and Boz? Oh, 2014-15, all of us together now, so about 5-6 seasons. Story was that Boz started drinking in the pub where I used to work. We became friends. He was a regular. I hadn't been going as regular as I'd done previously because of obviously pub trade, his unsociable hours and Saturdays, but managed to then start changing shifts and stuff, and we've been going every week since, and I've since come out of the pub trade now, so I get weekends free. Joe Simmons, describe being a Gillingham fan in 3 words. Up and down. Jamie Lua, where do you think we will finish this season and what do you want to see going forward? Answered it already, Jamie, a couple of times. I think 11th or 13th, but I'd be happy with 15th, 16th, 17th, just as long as we're not having to go to the last day. And progress, I've said that plenty of times. I've said it on previous videos as well. If we can become a sustainable mid-table League One team over the next 2 or 3 seasons, then excellent. Will Jordan, should Tom Hadler get a chance in goal at some point this season if you're safe maybe in the next month or so, as Holy is looking to move on potentially? Can't do us any harm. If we are safe, I would say it's a good idea if you can get him 2 or 3 games at the end of the season, but I certainly wouldn't do what Steve Lovell did last season and pitch him in when we're still struggling. And he made his debut against a very good Blackpool side, and we were awful that day, and he got, well, little or no support from the 10 outfield players in front of him. Unfortunately, we lost 3-0. Stephen Udall, do you think that Holy and Eaves will leave for Championship in the summer? If Gillingham get relegated to League 2, do you think many players will stay? Probably not, Stephen, if we got relegated. But my own personal opinion is we've got plenty enough to be safe, so I don't think that will be an issue. Regarding Thomas Holy and Tom Eaves, again, I think I've answered it. it all depends on the here and now in terms of form. If they both have strong ends to the campaign, then obviously there's going to be interest specifically because they're out of contract as well. So there's a chance that clubs can get them for no fee. But only time will tell, I guess. It'd be lovely to keep them both. I think they're both very good League One players, which I've already said to a couple of other people. And it'd be great to see them stay beyond the summer. But if not, we shall send them on their way with our best wishes. Steve Griffiths, nice and simple, will we get relegated? Answered it already with Liam Thornley on Twitter. Not Liam Thornley, Liam Stanley. No, I don't think we will, Steve. I think we've got enough about us with the new signings coming in to see us relatively safe, and I think we're finished lower to mid-table. Right, final question. Thank you to everyone who has had input. It's been brilliant. Adrian Smith, last but not least, with football today and bigger teams getting relegation or promotion to League One with extra funds to spend, how long can Gills compete in the league without each season looking like relegation candidates? It's a very good question, Adrian. Like I've said, Paul Scally is fearful that if our club and other smaller clubs at this level don't get investment or takeovers in the last few years, he's worried for a few of them, including us. I think he said when we was at one of his meetings over Christmas that Burton's wage budget in the Championship last season was 11 million. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, I think that's right. They've come down into League One with an £11 million wage budget. If you look at teams in the top half of the Championship and challenging for the playoffs, the Leedses and the Villas and the Middlesbroughs, you're looking at 50 million plus per season, which is staggering considering that's not the top division in our league, in our country, sorry. You look at Sunderland, I know I don't like to use it as a stick to beat them with because I think their fans are excellent and I think they're an excellent club that deserves to be higher up. And I think the way they had it over the last couple of years because of all the poor mismanagement at a high level from Ellis Short and Martin Bain is almost criminal and something needs to be done. And I was listening to James's D3, D4 podcast a few days ago and he was speaking about there has to be improvements with this proper person test because at the moment it just seems you walk into a meeting with the EFL and the FA and go, yeah, I've got some money, I can do this and that, I'm going to do everything properly, and they go, oh yeah, all right, no problem, take your word for it. And then we end up with situations like Blackpool's and Coventry's and Portsmouth's and, you know, other teams historically that have struggled. Blackburn's another one. So in terms of how long we can last, if you listen to the chairman, then probably a few seasons, and then it maybe become concerning because the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And of course, we'd all love to be promotion candidates and we'd all love to be playoff candidates and we'd all love to be winning more than we're losing. But unfortunately, there's 24 teams in that league, which means there's 12 games every week on average. And some are going to win, some are going to lose. So, like in any sport, you have to have losers, and we've lost more than we care to see over the last few seasons, certainly since Justin Edinburgh had that very good season 2014-15 and then 2015-16 when we finished 12th and 9th. Since then it's been slim pickings, unfortunately, and that's not me being negative or anything like that, it's just fact, and it's not been good enough and it's not always been fun to watch. But we'll have to see, won't we? You have to see if how rich the rich keep getting and how poor the poor keep getting. And fingers crossed, like I've said to plenty of people and answered plenty of questions, if we can have a decent end to the season, and then potentially in the summer, if there's a bit there in terms of a budget, we can attract a better class of player and maybe push up the league a little bit next season. But only time will tell. But I'm sure, regardless of that, we might moan, but plenty of us will still keep turning up every Saturday and every Tuesday, and plenty of us will still travel up and down the country to watch them because it's Gillingham Football Club and it's ingrained into us. It's in our blood, and I don't think we'd have it any other way. And you appreciate the wins more when you don't do it so much. And I sit here sometimes and I think, oh, it'd be great to follow a Barnsley and it'd be great to follow a Sunderland and, you know, a big stadium and a big crowd and winning every week. But then I think Wembley 99, Wembley 2000, Wembley 2009, Championship winning season 2012-13, and we appreciate them more because they don't come round every day of the week for Gillingham Football Club, and we appreciate the days out, the beating Cardiffs and the going to Swanseas, and going to White Hart Lanes and hosting Newcastle in the League Cup, and that's just recently, and then going back further, Villa at home and Chelsea at home and Arsenal away and Leeds away and at home and all them big things, and going back further before my time, Everton, taking them to 2 replays, and Sunderland in the playoffs, and it's more exciting and it's more magical. And I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, so I do apologise, but we don't know how long it will last and how long we can be sustainable if the money keeps going to every other team higher up the pyramid. But we'll keep coming to watch, I'm sure, because that's what we do. And I think that's a great question to end on. So thank you to everyone who has posted their questions on Twitter and Facebook. It is much appreciated. I hope you enjoy watching it as much as I've enjoyed putting it together. Thank you for all your ongoing support, all your retweets, all your comments, all your questions, all your likes, all your Instagram messages, all your Facebook posts, subscribing to the channel, letting other people know about us. Let's hope we can pick up 3 points today against Fleetwood and get ourselves further away from the drop zone and looking at the dizzy heights of potentially the top half of the table. Yeah, and that's enough from me. And until next time, up the Gills.